You're listening to the Paisan Sports Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Dante De Placido and Zach DiLiano. All right, and welcome back to the Paisan Sports Podcast. Dante De Placido, as always, joined by Zach DiLiano.
Yes, sir. It's not my real last name, but
Look, DiLiano. Look, it sounds better. Okay,
Little Ellis Island cutoff, yeah.
just make the last name change
yeah, we'll
already.
go with it. We'll go with it.
But then what's the deal? It doesn't make as much sense. It kind of makes sense. But anyway, speaking of what's the deal with England? They're supposed to be one of the best soccer teams in the world. They can't score on the USA. They drew. They stink. Get them out of here.
They're actually putting a lot of pressure on the USA in the first half, though. But other than that, I mean,
I'm sorry. Did you actually watch?
Yeah, I did. I came prepared. So you said you were going to throw me through a loop in the beginning of the game.
Zachy Deal watching soccer. Yeah. Look at this.
I had to do a little something. But yeah, England was putting a lot of pressure on Team USA in the beginning of the game.
In the beginning, yeah.
But other than that, they really kind of flared out for what the expectations were. And I was talking about taking USA's live line. I think it was plus 350, and I did end up taking it, and I went down and didn't win any money. But that's what sucks about soccer betting is if you're in the Discord, we've actually had a lot of people trickle into the Discord.
Check the Discord.
Yeah,
I'm in it. I don't really check it.
Yeah, you need to get into it. So on the Discord, we put it on the link tree. We've had some people trickle in, and we have some soccer bets that go on there consistently. I'm not the most consistent soccer guy because I grew up a football guy, so it's hard for me to get into soccer when I'm also paying attention to basketball, MMA, and baseball while it's around, and just some of the other sports, football, obviously. But yeah, I watched part of that game, and England was putting a lot of pressure on early. I was getting nervous, but Team USA held their own.
Yeah, England put a lot of pressure on us earlier in the game, but then in like the second half of the first half, we were playing a lot of pressure.
How many corners were there in the second half of the first half for Team USA where they were so close, just pushing the ball into their territory?
They were taking a lot of shots.
And I told people as a casual soccer fan, anytime I see a corner, I get really excited as a casual soccer fan because I see it as like a prime opportunity to score and like a chance for a team to score. So, I mean, you had Team USA's arguably their best player hit one off the post, which
that was so close.
If you come that close. That's a good day, especially for what the expectations were on the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, for England, that draw is basically a loss. And I don't know if you saw on social media how upset England fans were. I mean, they were getting into bar fights. There were England fans complaining on TikTok.
Well, that's what people don't understand. You got whole countries behind you. You know what I mean? That's like when the Raptors won the NBA championship and they're having the parade and people are trying to downplay the parade. Like, it's not as big as this parade was, this, that, the other. It's like, dude, they have all of Canada behind them. Canada behind them. So that just adds another,
Yeah, well, the other two things I'll say about the game is England, towards the very end, they had a free kick that I was really nervous about because when you get a free kick, I don't know exactly. There's like two different distances you can kick.
One's like 40 yards ish, right?
That the further one is what we had at the very end.
Yeah.
And then they had the closer up one, which is much more likely to score a goal on. And I was really nervous during that, but they were able to not let them score. But then the final play, our free kick that was further back, it was an awful play. I mean, they didn't even go for the goal. They kind of tried to drop a play down the sideline. It ended up getting kicked out of bounds. The game was over. It was kind of disappointing, but we drew. I'm happy with that. And the other thing is, I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, but Aronson, whatever his name is, from Medford, who plays in the Premier League, got into the game in the second half. So that was cool to see.
You see all the billboards when we're driving here, promoting it. Have you seen those billboards
in
Cherry Hill?
I have not, no.
You haven't seen those billboards in Cherry Hill? There's one literally right on the highway right up there.
Really? What, for that guy?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I saw him at least 2 weeks ago. I don't know if I saw him this way. I usually see him when I'm driving back because that's where the billboards post. So when you're driving back through Cherry Hill. But I saw it, I think 2 weeks ago. They had a big billboard for him and celebrating him making Team USA and everything. So that was also obviously very cool.
Yeah. And then one final thing about soccer, speaking of top players in the USA, I don't know if you heard this bit of news, but Lionel Messi, or Lionel, however you pronounce his first name. I hear different announcers say it differently, but he's very close to signing a big deal with Miami in the MLS, which is crazy.
That's a thing?
Yeah,
I haven't heard of that at all. That's my favorite soccer player. I'm a very casual soccer fan, but if we're talking about arguably the greatest soccer player of all time about to sign with the MLS, what was the dude with the ponytail, Van Sloten, a couple years back? And he was just tearing up the MLS, doing whatever he wanted, and he was a good player. But on like the Europe scale, he was still not one of the better players. So imagine what Messi could do in the MLS if that's a thing.
So what I was unaware of until hearing this news, which is a very common theme for like top international players, is usually when they get up there in age and they're not as great in the Premier League, let's say, as they have been throughout the years. Oftentimes they do go to the MLS just to dominate for a few years.
I don't know if that narrative fits Messi though. He's
35.
I know. But
he's still
arguably
very good.
The best player in the not the country, in the world still.
Yeah. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. He's still a phenomenal player, but it is a common theme that I was unaware of.
No, that definitely is a common theme, but like for the scale of a player and the notoriety of we're talking about one of the most popular athletes of all time here.
Yeah. Well, apparently David Beckham, when he was only 32, actually, he went to play for the LA Galaxy, and he played there.
Yeah, I remember that, but David Beckham,
I didn't pay attention to soccer at all back then.
I knew like stuff like that, but like David Beckham, where David Beckham was at his career to where Messi is and what Messi's career has grown into. I mean, that would be massive for the MLS.
No, it would be huge. And here's the other kicker that I didn't mention either. So Messi's very close to signing with Miami. I think it's like almost a done deal. But Cristiano Ronaldo is also possibly signing with Miami. So those two might team up in
I don't
Miami.
know. Where are these sources coming from?
So the Messi thing, that was all over Twitter. I didn't actually see, and I was talking to my brother who mentioned Ronaldo might also sign with Miami. So that I don't have a legit source for.
I was about to say, yeah.
But the Messi deal, that is very legit.
Because what purpose would that serve for both of them to go do that and play with each other when they're pretty much neck and neck for the all-time who's the greatest player of all time?
I don't know. I think Messi kind of has the edge on.
I think Messi does have the edge, but Ronaldo is also just they're like two. They're so easy to like separate and just, appreciate their greatness because they're so entirely different style players. One's like an absolute specimen who can just kick the ball from 50 yards out and is just more so relies on his physical skills and what he does in Cristiano Ronaldo, compared to Messi just being able to weave through a defense and being really smart and really witty and being able to have success and produce in that type of way. So, they could play together. That's the thing. Like, there's certain, like, if you're talking about NBA players trying to team up with each other, like, how much could Kevin Durant, even though Kevin Durant and LeBron could theoretically play with each other because LeBron can be a facilitator, Kevin Durant can hit those shots, and he can do various different roles on the court. But other sports, when you try and mesh two guys together in a team setting, it won't work out. You know what I mean? But I do think if for whatever reason that did happen, Ronaldo and Messi could play with each other. Well,
and not only that, you're comparing the two best players in the NBA joining forces, right?
Well, I wouldn't even say that like the two best players. I was just talking about like the past 5 years of like, you know what I mean? LeBron and KD are the pinnacle of the league. Yeah, but right now, I don't. But the point I'm getting, LeBron guy, the point I'm getting to here is the reason why it's so different is because, like, let's say for argument, the two best players in the NBA joining forces, right? Yeah. You're comparing that to the two best players in the world joining forces on a team in a league that is far inferior. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, because they're both NBA players, but they are the best in the world just because the NBA is the pinnacle of the sport. You know what I mean? Those two would easily be by far the best players in the MLS. Like, not even by close. Far. They would absolutely dominate. Those are the two best players in the world. I don't think, who would you name that are two better players than them? Mbappe? Exactly. They're the best players in the entire world joining a far inferior league. So it would just be utter dominance. So what could you compare that to? That's like, you can't compare it to anything. Really. So what would be happening would be like Bryce Harper when he was coming back from injury and he was cranking all those bombs in AA and AAA ball. That's what it would look like for the MLS. Yeah, I would compare Bryce Harper playing in AA
to Messi playing in the MLS. Not even
Yeah.
AAA, in AA. That's what it'll be like for Messi
Oh man,
in the MLS. And
would that be something?
and as a Union fan, I hate the idea because then there goes our chances. But at the same time, I love the idea as a soccer fan.
Well, that might be able to lure more people into the MLS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
'Cause
would-
if that,
yeah,
but
it could be
that might
huge for
turn
the
the MLS into, I don't know if it would ever get more popular than the English Premier Leagues and some of them that they
No,
have.
but it would definitely elevate the MLS a lot.
Oh, 100%.
And then you already have in the Eastern Conference, you have a guy like Andre Blake who's easily capable of playing in Europe. So I mean, you have some like real, not to compare Andre Blake to Messi or Ronaldo, but then you do have some serious star talent in the Eastern
Like the
Conference.
best MLS players of now would be like, some of them could be significant role players for their teams in English Premier, but there's nobody really in the MLS now that could go over and take over as like the star of any of those teams over in Europe.
I do think Andre Blake, as a goalkeeper for one of the Premier League teams, could really help them out. But anyway, enough with the soccer talk now. Let's talk Eagles. Let's talk the victory last night against the Green Bay Packers.
10-1.
10-1,
10-1. That's where you have to state it first.
363 rushing yards.
16th most in a game for a team in NFL history.
And then I think it was our most since, 1938, I think it was?
Yeah, it was funny because when I was looking for the stat to see what were the biggest rushing games by a team of all time, my favorite player ever, Adrian Peterson, 8th game into his career, had 295 against my former favorite player of all time, LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah, I was looking at that too.
That was such a special game for me. That was also the Antonio Cromartie 107-yard kick return touchdown on the missed field goal.
Game?
So that game had a lot going on. But my favorite player of all time, I've always loved running backs and how prevalent they were in the early 2000s and how big of a difference they made because they were seen as like some of the running backs. LaDainian Tomlinson was pretty much the quarterback of his team production-wise and what he would do for his team. So that was crazy to see my first love player and LaDainian Tomlinson do his thing forever, and then 8 games into Adrian Peterson's career, him smash that record. And that was 300 by himself. So when I was looking at the all-time totals
he had 296 in that game.
Yeah, 296.
Yeah, and then the second running back had 60 yards.
Jamal Lewis was close there too. Jamal Lewis was the former holder of that record. I think it was like 277 or somewhere like really close to that. So he was the original owner. But yeah, when I was looking at the team history and how many rushing yards the team has posted in NFL history, I was like, wow, like the Eagles were already on this list. And it makes a lot of sense because like I said, running the ball used to be the main format of playing football, especially in the National Football League.
That's why when you see them break all these old records, which is stuff they started doing last season where it'd be like, oh, first time with 3 straight games of 200 yards or something like that.
And also to add to it, Jalen Hurts was the first player ever, the first quarterback ever, I mean, you could say player too, to have 125 yards passing and 125 yards rushing in the same half.
Yeah.
Ever. So that was, I mean, extremely impressive in itself.
But that is why stemming from last season when you see the Eagles break all these rushing records or rushing franchise records or whatever, every time you see it, it'll be like first time the Eagles have done this since 1938 or first time they've done that since 1945. It's because that was back when teams were running the ball that much. So it's crazy to see them break.
And last season when you saw them break all those records, it was they had a run game. We knew that. When they committed to the run versus the Bucs, in the Thursday night game, I went to the Bucs game last year. I think it was week 6 or week 7. Started off 2-5 on the season. I think they lost that game. That might have been their 5th loss of the season. So it was week 7, primetime game. They ran the ball twice by halftime. Everyone in the stadium, I have a video on my phone, is chanting, "Run the ball, run the ball," the whole time. And then right after that, they committed to running the ball. And we knew from that point in the season on, when they started running the ball, they can do this. They have Jalen Hurts, who's capable of doing it. Miles Sanders is a very good running back who can do it, and we have one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL, so this will work. But seeing them post that number after, especially their defense giving up a lot of bad rushing games over the past couple games itself, but knowing that not only can they do that and they can put up 350-plus rushing yards on the ground, but they also had a pass game. It wasn't like last year, like if they would have done that, you would have blinked an eye because like, oh, all they do is run the ball. Now you have threats on the outside and you're able to throw 2 touchdown passes in a game where you also run for 263 or 363 yards, which is ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like that shows you can win in all different types of fashions. And it's not like you're just handing it off to your running back and have like a really good running back committee like the Cleveland Browns do, where you can get 100 yards rushing from Kareem Hunt if you wanted to and Nick Chubb in the same game. We're running with our quarterback that adds an extra blocker into the scheme to be able to run this, have a running back that can do it. We could hand the ball off to A.J. Brown on a jet sweep if we want to run the ball with him, have multiple options in the pass game. This offense is pretty balanced.
Yeah, and what's scary is like this shows that if they wanted to just run the crap out of the ball all season, they could have been doing this the whole time. They're only doing this now because they have less weapons out on the field with Goddard out. So now this is something they're leaning back on.
Well, this is what we talked about on the podcast. We knew this was going to happen because once Dallas, the threat of the tight end isn't there, and it's been, if you looked at the stat lines in the box score the past couple games, it's been like more so of an even receiving effort from Devontae, and obviously AJ are going to carry it, but Quez Watkins been making plays, but it's kind of been more of an even spreading the ball out. They've had less than 19 completions the past 2 games, and they've won, being able to run the ball and just finding a different way to win.
And the fact that this dominant of a run game is more so the fallback option.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's what's scary.
Because that's what we're saying.
They
is
don't
like
have
they
to
have
rely on this dominant run game. Like this dominant run game is something they do if the other option isn't there.
Because last year, really in the pass game, all it really was that they had was the RPO, where it was a run option in the beginning, and then if that wasn't the read to make, then they would pass the ball off that. But now we have actual set pass plays that work, and we're able to run the RPO if we want, and we're able to run the ball and run read option. There's just so many just, tools in the shed.
Yeah, and you saw a ton of designed runs for Jalen Hurts.
100%.
I mean, a good deal of those, I think it was 16 carries.
And I remember complaining about seeing him over like 15 carries a game in the beginning of the season. I think that happened up until like the Washington game, which was week 3, and it kind of faded off. But in the first 2 games of the season, he had over 14 carries in each game. I think it was like 16 or 17 in week 1, and they were really blitzing him a lot. And I was thinking, like, I don't know how sustainable it is if we keep putting Jalen Hurts into harm's way like this. But now being able to run the ball and have that extra blocker, and it's not like him just scrambling. There's set run plays, and then he sits in the pocket now instead of scrambling out of most of those pass plays like he was doing before, has actual options and reads to make down the field in the pass game, and he can scamper off and run like we saw on the first drive last night where he had a 27-yard run and a 24-yard run. And we were talking about it when we were watching the highlights back right before the podcast, like, how many 10-yard runs from Jalen Hurts did you account for last night? 10?
Yeah, there was
or not 10. It was close to 7 or 8. Yeah, it was like 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range. I mean, and then some of them we're talking about 10-yard runs. He had like 3 20-plus yard runs.
Yeah, he had a lot of those. And
man coverage absolutely annihilate
like,
man coverage.
You don't have to worry. This time around, you don't have to worry about him running the ball a ton because you don't have to think, is this sustainable? Because it's not really something they're going to continue to do. It's just something they're doing for now.
Well, I do think some of those like set run plays for the quarterback they'll keep doing, and I like when they do that because that's...
But not nearly as much.
Yeah, exactly.
Though.
You obviously see there's a void they're trying to fill.
Because you saw the offense was able to be very productive for many weeks without him doing this. So this time you watch it and you're like, okay, this is just something they're doing for now until Goddard gets back. Yeah. So you don't really have to worry.
And you also have to account for when Dallas Goedert's in there. Some of the plays that they run for Dallas Goedert kind of count as run plays too. Like how many tight end screens do we run a game when he's in there? 2 or 3. You know what I mean? So we had that really nice run versus Washington in week 3 where he scooted past the defense and scored in that way, and he gets down the field as well. So they're definitely missing something down the middle of the field, and that was everybody's harp, is where Hurts only throws the ball to the outside hashes on either side and not down the middle of the field. But that was more so in the beginning of the season until we saw him open it up more, and you've seen A.J. Brown go over the middle of the field.
Yeah,
but
they do.
That's not going to be as
slant route.
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about in routes and just being able to attack the middle of the field with the pass game. It's not going to be as much there because Dallas Goedert was a big stakeholder in that type of offensive production for them. But I mean, they've produced really well. The one harp I will have is A.J. Brown needs to hold on to the ball. I know he might have been dealing with something a little bit more serious than was made out to the public yesterday.
Well, I mean,
back-to-back games with fumbles.
7 pounds from throwing up, so it sounds like he was pretty ill. And he still did catch a touchdown pass, so hats off to him. I will say this, though, about Dallas Goedert and not using him for the tight end screens. The one thing that's actually kind of nice about not doing that is now you're not seeing a ton of illegal man downfield penalties, which they usually.
I mean, there was one last night though. But,
there was one.
Yeah, there was one, but that's tough when you run the style of offense they run. But
yeah.
Anytime there was man coverage for the Packers and their backs were turned, Jalen Hurts stepped up in the pocket and just.
That's the thing. The Packers really had no answer because, if you're gashing them up the middle with the run and they bring the all-out blitz, then you're able to hit A.J. Brown.
It was a perfect mixture of everything too. Like they had a bunch of chunk run plays. Miles Sanders had a couple nice long runs too, but it was also long, sustained, high volume, high carries. Like they got there by carrying the ball a lot and running the ball a lot. And like I said, they only had like 18. I think Jalen Hurts attempted like 26 passes, had like 17 or 18 completions. So it was just a lot of balance.
17 completions, 28 attempts.
This is a total offense, like from last year where there was times where they really flurried out when they couldn't run the ball and couldn't establish the run and then have the threat of the pass off of that. And they really didn't have a threat of a pass game now. So it's just really encouraging to see now that they've pretty much overcome a lot of the stuff that in the offseason they knew that everybody knew they brought in a lot of talent. Everybody was saying like, yeah, this was one of the best off seasons that a team's had, but how are you going to put it all together? And it's looked like they put it all together pretty well so far.
Yeah. And what else was I going to say? I lost it.
Do you want a little turkey blank here?
Yeah,
Well, let's talk about the defense and how the defense.
Oh, right. Yeah. I was gonna say the special
about
teams.
The offense, but special teams getting questionable. That's been questionable.
Not even questionable. It's not even a question anymore. The special team stinks. I don't know why Michael Clay came back for a second season, but that unit looks awful. And thank God for Kevon Wallace when he chased.
Well, that's also an issue. I mean, it's not an excuse to make, but a lot of these guys, they're not used to playing special teams. They might have been the best player on their college team, and now they're getting a shot in the NFL.
Excuse.
I know it's not a good excuse at all.
Kevon Wallace.
Like how much effect does Michael Clay really have on what the special team unit goes out there and does? Like you're only running like three different plays.
Are you asking how much impact the special teams coordinator has on the special teams
compared to what the players are actually doing on the field? It's really not that hard of a concept to try and teach them what they need to do. You're covering the same lanes on the special teams that you need to cover, and they just haven't been able to do that. What else can you really say about it?
Look, here's the thing.
It's not like they're like consistently missing snaps. Like Jake Elliott, let's talk about it. Michael Clay. How much should be put on Michael Clay for Jake Elliott missing an extra point yesterday?
No, I'm not blaming that.
That's what I'm saying. That's a part of special teams.
I'm talking about kick return coverage. I'm talking about on punt returns, the jammers need to get up on those gunners so we actually have room to return a punt. I'm talking about on us punting, the jammers need to get past their gunners and make a.
Well, they put Boston Scott back there deep, which was the first time that they actually put him back there. Yeah,
it was good to not see. It was good to not really see much of Britton Covey.
I was never big on Britton Covey. I mean, he was a solid guy. He was one of those camp stories that, could pan out, but what we've seen from him in NFL games so far, especially on punt returns, I'm not confident. And I think when they get into more crucial situations, you'll see a Devontae Smith out there to catch a ball on the 10-yard line, say the Eagles are down or getting the ball back in a late game situation just to make sure that the punt is caught and fielded. I think they're going to go to a Devontae Smith.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Britton Covey, we've learned he offers you absolutely nothing on special teams, right? And during the preseason, Devin Allen did a really, really good job as a gunner.
Still on the practice squad now.
He did a really good job as a gunner. So I would, if I'm the Eagles, I'm getting rid of Britton Covey. I'm bringing up Devin Allen, seeing what he can do on special teams, because I think he can actually make an impact on special teams that this team needs, because they could have very well lost that game thanks to the special teams last night.
Two kick returns up to the 50-yard line in different scenarios, too. And one was later in the game, and one was in the first half. So,
and that's the thing about the defense, too, is I don't think the defense played all that great last night, but I don't think they played as bad as the final score of the game showed, because they had great field position thanks to 2 turnovers by us, and they also had great field position thanks to 2 big kick returns. So they had great field position 4 different times in that game. So I think that that definitely attributed to final score a lot. I think it was 33 points the Packers put up. So I don't think the defense played as bad as the final score showed. I don't think they played all that great. But the turnovers by the offense and the poor special teams definitely made the defense look a lot worse than they really did.
Yeah. I mean, field of position, where you get the ball at is a big factor into the game. And that can put you in some sticky spots, especially why I harped on that fumble so much by A.J. Brown was there was a 60-yard return that ended up putting that ball inside the 20-yard line. So that ended up being a crucial play. And it was such a big flip of momentum because the Eagles were driving like inside their 30. I think that was on a third down and an 8 play. It was a wide receiver screen to the outside.
I think it was 2nd and 8. I don't think it was third down.
I'm pretty sure it was third down, but
I think it was third down because I don't remember watching that play happen and being like, crap, now we have to kick a field goal before he fumbled it. I mean,
I'm almost positive it was third down because I watched the play a couple times. But regardless of the situation, they were driving into that area and almost had points guaranteed on the board, up by 6 points after the missed extra point. And then now, luckily, Green Bay missed the extra point, or they would have took the lead after that fumble. They
had fantastic field position from that fumble, from the turnover on downs. Which, by the way, I have no idea what happened on that snap. That was
he held the ball, and that was
bizarre.
Did you see his the podcast clip of him getting very angry at Travis and walking off the podcast, and they had to do it the next day after already halfway recording it because of the snap that was brought up to him about one of the bad shotgun snaps that he made in the Indianapolis Colts game. So I don't know what's going to happen on the new podcast.
Yeah, because that was funky.
Yeah, and he held the ball, ended up in Miles Sanders' hands somehow, and held the ball. It was just an illegal snap infraction, which should have actually gave the. I guess it should have been a penalty if it was able to be seen, and I don't know if it would have just gave. I mean, I guess they could have declined the penalty, Green Bay, and they would have still got the ball in the turnover on downs in that situation. But at least a penalty would have been awarded for a snap infraction for him never releasing the ball.
They got away with that penalty.
But I mean, like I said, it would have just been declined, and Green Bay would have been most likely able to just take over turnover and down, so it wouldn't have mattered. But it was just a crazy play because you had no clue what was going on. It looked like they were obviously close. They were going to run a QB sneak like they normally do out of like the victory formation, what it looks like, and just kind of get some extra push. And the ball was just literally never left his hands. And he was almost mindful of it. It almost seemed like he thought they were in shotgun for some reason, or he just entirely thought Jason Kelce thought something else was going on because he didn't feel like it looked like I used to play center back in the day. It looked like he didn't feel like anybody was under center. So that's why he held onto the ball so that it wasn't fumbled. But Jalen Hurts was really trying to take the ball from him and complete the snap. So it was an odd situation. But another thing to hang your hats on yesterday, 2 Eagles got their first career interception off of legendary Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and what's actually funny about it is Slay before the game was talking about how bad he wanted an interception.
And
from
even
Aaron
said
Rodgers.
it after the game too.
And right off his helmet and into the arms of Josiah Scott. So he had his chance. He just couldn't get his gloves on it. But that was
the Reed Blankenship play was a great play.
That was a really nice.
It was a really good read. And you saw we were talking about the bad angle and a pursuit that he took on the Christian Watson touchdown that Jordan Love came in and threw to him on that crossing route. It was a really bad angle that he took, and he's just not athletic enough. You saw when he's trying to run with Christian Watson, there's no chance it's happening. I mean, we're talking about the difference between 4.3 speed and 4.6, 4.7 speed. So, but when the defense didn't have to cover as much ground and were inside the red zone territory, and he didn't have to cover as much ground, didn't have to worry about people going over his head or trying to make an angle of pursuit like that. He was able to jump in front of that play, and it showed that his instincts were well. And we were just talking about it. We were kind of surprised that Kevon Wallace wasn't given the opportunity to go in there at safety when C.J. Gardner-Johnson got hurt on that one conversion that the Packers made on 4th down. We were kind of surprised because Kevon Wallace has played in the defense, a younger guy, but he's played in the defense. Reed Blankenship's a undrafted rookie, but I mean, Reed looked prepared for the moment. Yeah. Leading tackler on the team yesterday, so he looked like he prepared well, was ready for the moment.
Yeah, and then Kevon Wallace, though, he did get his chance at the end. He finished the game with just a total of 3 snaps, but he made that big play in the end zone to stop Green Bay from scoring, which they eventually kicked the field goal. So both Blankenship and Kevon Wallace really stepped up when their name was called. And Kevon Wallace, as I mentioned earlier, he also made that crucial tackle on that kick return that most likely saved the touchdown. which also eventually led to then him making that stop in the end zone and Green Bay settling for the field goal. I don't know if Green Bay would have eventually won anyway because it was still a 10-score game, but still very big plays by Kevon Wallace. Reed Blankenship made some big
and
plays.
they were really attacking the middle of the field too. They really tried to isolate the linebackers and the safeties, and for them, that being the game plan for Green Bay, the defense for the Eagles really stepped up and played well.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is a guy who I've mentioned previously on this podcast who impressed me yet again last night, and I even tweeted that I think this guy is probably the most underrated defensive player in the NFL, that being TJ Edwards. It feels like every week there's at least 2 plays where he really comes up, makes a big hit, makes a big tackle for loss, whatever it is. He's just an absolute dog out there. He really, I mean, he's all over the field. And he impressed me yet again last night.
Yeah, he's definitely been doing his thing this year.
Yeah, and then one final thing I want to mention about the game, want to mention about defense before we move on to some Sixers talk, is actually before I give my meatball of the week, and then we move on to some Sixers talk. But one thing I want to talk about was the snap counts for the defensive line, because Linval Joseph was right up there in snaps with Fletcher Cox. So he was seeing a lot of work out there last night. Ndamukong Suh, he was I think Linval and Fletch had around 30 snaps, and Ndamukong Suh might have been around 18. So Ndamukong Suh also had some snaps in there, but Linval Joseph, they were playing him out there a lot. You really try to plug up that middle, stop the run game. So I mean, these old guys, they're out there playing,
They really are. They're doing their thing. And to come off the couch like we talked about last podcast and be able to produce like this and play in crucial moments, almost as in where they're getting as many snaps as the starters that have been there for the past couple of years in Philadelphia, it's impressive. And they might have not played the greatest game. I mean, there was some big runs that the Green Bay Packers had, and they're still trying to sew that together in the middle of the defense there. But they're definitely doing the job. And it's definitely better this way, having them on the roster and producing this way, than not having anybody there.
Than without them.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
100%.
And hopefully Jordan Davis, I haven't really heard any word on him. I know he's eligible to come off the IR this week against
they usually
Tennessee.
open the practice window. It's like a week after that, so I don't know. But, I mean, if we're talking about the next opponent that they would love to have one player back for any week of the season, it's Jordan Davis versus Derrick Henry, who might be the same size as each other. That's
I know. That's the
Derrick
thing. It's
Henry
like,
is.
how exactly do you counter the sheer massive size of Derrick Henry? You counter it with the sheer massive size.
I want to see the Richter scale. When those two meet in the hole,
Davis.
I want to see the Richter scale of what's going on in there.
God.
You want to talk about, you don't want to be sandwiched in the middle as any type of player.
Hopefully it'll be like when Brian Dawkins absolutely laid out Jerome Bettis, if you remember that play from back in the day. Because Jerome Bettis,
I thought you were actually going to talk about the Algie Crumpler hit in the NFC Championship back.
Well, no, I think Brian Dawkins laying out Jerome Bettis is a better comparison, because Jerome Bettis had the reputation.
I watched Jerome Bettis run over Brian Urlacher. Yeah, you remember he ran over Brian Urlacher in the snow?
And then Brian Dawkins just came up and laid the boom on him. So hopefully we'll see some of that. If Jordan Davis does play, hopefully he does play.
So what's the early expectations? We might do a podcast and we might talk about this before Sunday. Hopefully we can get another podcast in to talk about it. But just as a quick overview, what do we think going into the game versus the Tennessee Titans? Because they're not a team to take lightly.
If Jordan Davis doesn't play, I'm very nervous. If he does play, then I'm a bit neutral.
Because that's a team where you know how they're going to play. You know what's happening, but can you stop it? That's one of those type of games.
Yeah.
Where we're just talking about how the Eagles team is very balanced on offense and can win in very different ways. If the Titans are going to win a game, you know how they're going to win it. So it's going to be interesting to see. One team's weakness versus another team's strength, but I'm not really too concerned about what the Titans defense has to offer. Especially with their pass rush is pretty good, very inconsistent at times, but I think the Eagles offensive line will be able to keep them in check, be able to pass the ball all over them. And it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to come down to the Titans' offense and what they can do versus the Eagles' defense.
Yeah. And anyway, it is now time for me to give my meatball of the week. Now, my meatball of the week, it's a little late, but, it's something that happened last week. We haven't really done a podcast since then. But my meatball of the week is Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons, after he's been playing well recently.
No, let me give my specific situation as to why he's my meatball of the week. Because Ben Simmons, after going to the line, this was the Nets game against the Sixers, by the way, I should preface that. After going to the line and making 1 out of 2 free throws, he decides to shush the crowd like he just did something amazing. And then later on, he does the MJ shoulder shrug, all just to put up 0 stats in the fourth quarter.
I know, he ruined me that
Ben
night,
Simmons fashion. And lose the game. You should have listened to Mikey Klein about that. Actually, Mike, his bet didn't hit either because he took the under.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not listening to anybody because my
stat prediction was very close. I said
the
11
odds
points.
that I'm betting on that bet.
Guy, you're interrupting my meatball of the week. Can I do my?
I'm just trying to tell you that I was that close to a triple double.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Anyway, Ben Simmons, he made a big fiasco only to put up nothing in the fourth quarter, lose the game, and give the entire city of Philadelphia free chicken nuggets, which I did enjoy on Ben Simmons' behalf. Not behalf, on his...
It's only in Philly that you can get them, right? Or is it around in South Jersey?
It's the greater Philly area, as they say, which really I feel like doesn't have any specific parameters, but they do advertise as the greater Philadelphia
So where'd you
area.
cash in at? What location?
The one by my house in Mantua.
Okay, so it was covering that. So we got
originally I tried to leave here because I was here. What was this, Wednesday? Yeah, this was Wednesday. So the game was on. Yeah, the game was the Tuesday before.
It was that Tuesday primetime TNT slate.
Actually, no. So we did have a podcast after that game, but we just got so caught up arguing about Gronk and Tony Gonzalez, we never talked about it. Yeah, we were playing on game to the Sixers. We never got around to it, but yeah. So after leaving here, I tried to go to the one in Cherry Hill, but the line was out the door. Me and this other guy walked in. We both took a look at the line and said, "No, this isn't worth it," and walked out. So I actually went to Pliables, got myself a smoothie. Tell you why I went to Pliables, because that location actually used to be a Muscle Maker grill that was owned by my father. I used to work there when I was a teenager.
Talk about on 45?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, so that used to be my dad's Muscle Maker grill, so I decided to stop in there. It was kind of trippy seeing it all redesigned as a Pliables. But I got myself a smoothie, then later on went to Chick-fil-A. I absolutely finessed Chick-fil-A because I was able to get the 5 free nuggets thanks to Ben Simmons.
I thought it was 4.
No, it's 5.
5. All right.
5. And then I don't know what 2 times.
Yeah, I feel like they're not really, they're not too locked into like the requirements of what's going on with that for the break and for the chicken. Because I thought it said it had to be cleaned by like 11 o'clock in the morning as well.
It has to be cleaned by 10:30 in the morning, and then you have 3 days to redeem it.
Oh, so you just got to claim it on the app or whatever?
Yeah.
I thought you had to pull up at like 10:30 in the morning and get the chicken. I was like, all right, well, that's like who's really eating chicken like that early in the morning?
No, and you don't even have to like do anything crazy when you open the app. When you open the app, after that occurs, it immediately will pop up.
Yeah, it'll be the first thing.
And you can claim it. Yeah.
All right, Chick-fil-A, I see you doing your thing.
So I don't know what you get if they miss both at the line twice, because that hasn't happened yet. But I do know what happens if they miss both the line 3 times, thanks to Giannis, which is 12.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Giannis just did that with the 3 misses.
Yeah, but anyway, I did have enough points to also claim a free sandwich and a free drink. So I was able to get a sandwich, a drink, and 5 nuggets, all for free, partially thanks to Ben Simmons. So thank you for that, Ben.
That's a good ad read right there, too.
Yeah.
It's a good ad read right
there.
We should be I heard Home Depot was actually offering free ladders. For when Giannis missed his 3 free throws for his little ladder tantrum that he had. Home Depot was doing a special for free ladders on Black Friday.
He should have been my meatball of the week last week then.
He should be. And everybody, I like Giannis too, but everybody acts like he hasn't had those moments before in the past.
Yeah,
where
they
he's
act
done
like
stuff
he's a saint.
Yeah, he's not. He's had multiple moments where he's blown up like that and done something like that, but it only gets talked about if Joel Embiid is doing it. So.
But anyway, I mean, how about these Sixers? With missing most of the team, missing Embiid, Harden, Maxey, they've been able to pull some wins together. I mean, a very impressive win over the Nets, who had Simmons, KD, and Kyrie.
Granted that it was back-to-back wins versus the Orlando Magic, who, if you're going to have one team that you're trying to match up with while you're all banged up, it's the Orlando Magic. But Shake Milton.
I mean,
Shake
yeah,
Milton.
exactly.
Shake Milton's been doing his thing.
He's been
past
terrific.
5 games. So Joel missed the Timberwolves game, which was the 5th game, the first of this 5-game stretch of time that I'm talking about. After the Timberwolves game, Joel missed time. And even with Joel in the lineup for that 1 game and then the 4 games moving forward, Shake Milton is averaging 23-plus points and 6 rebounds a game.
Wow.
And he's also adding some assist numbers on there too, but those are the most notable of the
He's been
stats.
balling
And he's
out.
been doing his thing.
He's really stepped up.
Especially for a guy that really doesn't
to.
get too much, like he gets kind of, 10 minutes a game when everybody's healthy and everything. But for a guy that really doesn't get too much time anymore and has been around in Philly for a long time to still be motivated to go out and put up those scoring efforts, it's good to see.
Yeah, and we'll see what they do tonight.
Joel is questionable for tonight's game, so we have to see if he's going to come back. I think Matisse is also questionable. PJ Tucker is probable, so they should get him.
PJ Tucker, man, it's so funny. He's so good on
We're going to
defense.
see PJ Tucker's true value when it comes to playoff time because you can't really see it unless you're watching all 48 minutes of the game, even though he doesn't play all 48 minutes, but you really have to have a close lens to see his value as of right now for what he signed for in the offseason, too, if you're looking at his stat line and what he's putting up per game. But he's obviously impacting defense out there, but
he's guaranteed. I never take the under when I'm betting, but if there's a guy to take the under on, it's PJ Tucker.
Yeah, it's moved
man.
from Draymond Green unders to the PJ Tucker unders, I guess now. So he's they usually put his line because usually they don't put people at like just to make 1 3 unless it's like Giannis, but even they put Giannis at like to make 2 threes, like plus 180 or whatever. He's usually PJ Tucker like minus 250 to make 1 3. But I think he made a 3 2 nights ago versus the Charlotte Hornets in the last 3 minutes of the game.
3.
That was his first basket in the last 3 games.
And then and then he did nothing again for a while. But I do want.
But at least it's not like a thing where it's like actually hurting them. And that was never the expectation for him to be scoring a lot of points. I mean, just some points here and there. We didn't expect him to also be scoring in the zeros and the goose eggs a lot. But it's not like it's hurting their team because they expected him to be able to score and he's not. So.
Yeah,
that's the one positive of the situation.
I do want to check right now out of curiosity what PJ Tucker's under is. Let me see.
I don't even know if it's open on the books like that right now.
Yeah,
actually, they should have the points.
Be.
No, they should have the points bands, but you can't like alternate them to anything. But you should be able to see the stock line of what it is. It's probably honestly like 4.5. So usually what they would put it at.
Yeah, no, they don't have. They don't have. They just have like. Who you can choose to put up like 10 plus points.
Yeah, they only have the Hawks open right now because they're waiting. The reason why the books are held like that, first off, this early in the day they're held like this for injury news, but more so Joel Embiid, who is the best player in the entire game. So that really switches the books up.
I will see first basket. Okay, so is he even an option?
Well, you can bet the first basket and the style of the first basket, the method. A PJ Tucker corner 3 would be, we're talking like plus 2,800 to like plus 3,500 odds here.
Right now, his first basket is plus 1,600. And method of first basket, if I can find a PJ Tucker 3, plus 3,300. Is a PJ Tucker.
So I said that plus 28 to plus 38 range.
Do you want to guess what a PJ Tucker free throw or dunk is?
PJ Tucker free throw is probably plus 5,500.
25,000.
25,000?
Same thing for a PJ Tucker dunk, plus 25,000. So, hey, if you want to
it'd be wild if you could bet a PJ Tucker and 1 dunk to start the game plus 1,000, plus 100,000 odds on the books. Turn $1 into 10,000. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's not affecting them because they don't expect him to score, so it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, but come playoff time, you're going to need some point production.
100%.
From him. So that
I mean, if they're fully healthy in a playoff series, though, you should be able to rely on Tyrese, Joel, James.
Well, it's not for that reason.
And
it's
Tobias.
Because you saw what happened with having Simmons and Thibault in the playoffs, where even though you don't need to lean on them to put up points, you still need them to put up points so that they're not just leaving them alone offensively and then double teaming.
Yeah, but I don't think that's not really what I've seen the issue be with PJ Tucker.
Yeah,
I don't
you haven't really
seen
seen that because he is more capable of hitting.
That's what I'm saying. If you leave him open 3 times, he's gonna make one of those threes guaranteed.
Yeah,
in the
but
corner,
he's got to at
guaranteed.
least start making some.
But the thing is, he's always going to be posted up in the corner, and that's where you have to defend him. It's not like he's going to make a three from anywhere on the top of the arc like there. Like, he's capable of it, but he's going to be posted up in that corner. That's just the way he plays.
I will say another guy who's really shown up is D'Anthony Melton. He's looked really
But that's
good.
also makes me more confident where you don't have to use a PJ Tucker because you saw what you have in D'Anthony Melton and Shake Milton to be able to get buckets and flurries if they need to. You can use that as your bench unit. You're not going to start those guys. Maybe D'Anthony Melton, depending on what would happen with your team and how healthy they are in a playoff series. But you can rely on those guys to get some buckets for you off the bench in a playoff series.
Yeah.
That Shake Milton's not going to be playing crazy minutes, but if he can come in for 10 minutes and get 3 buckets for you, that's solid.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is in the early part of the season when you had Embiid, Maxey, and Harden out there, you really saw nothing from the bench. So hopefully now with Melton and Milton putting up these kinds of points and, with more playing time, with more opportunities, hopefully now that gives them the confidence so where they come off the bench once everyone comes back healthy. Hopefully now they're letting these performances carry over to their performances off the bench once everybody comes back
and we
healthy.
haven't even mentioned the best bench player who's been around and been in playoff situations with the Sixers in Niang.
Yeah, he's looked good
He's been doing his thing, and you can rely on that. The minivan, you can rely on the minivan to get you some
even
buckets.
Furk has kind of been contributing.
Yeah, but you know what Furk is. He's got one of the wildest ideologies behind shooting the basketball ever. I think that's the best way I could put it. His ideologies behind shooting the basketball. Some of the shots he takes are absolutely outrageous.
He's definitely not somebody you can ever rely on. He's probably not really going to see the court again once everybody comes back, but it's just cool to see him contribute a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, so before we do get out of here, I do want to brag a little bit because as you know, and I don't know if we've mentioned on the podcast, we might have, but during the Phillies postseason run, we had the strategy of if the Phillies won, me and Zach, we would take whatever cash we had on us still left over at the end of the night. We'd walk over to Live Casino and we'd put that money on roulette. The first time we lost, and that kind of sucked. We walked all the way over there, lost on roulette. And then as we were leaving, and remember, I tried being like, you know what, I gotta go to the bathroom, and they were like, we can't let you in this way. And I was like, I've been here, here's a water bottle, it says Termini's Bakery on it, I got it from here. They were like, no, we can't let you in. I was like, whatever. That's beside the point. Anyway.
It was wildly besides the point.
Extremely beside the point. But anyway, we lost that time. Then there was another time we went to Live Casino. We did win our first roulette spin. And then you wanted to rebet more than I wanted to. And we lost the second spin, and we ended up with a profit of like $5.
Yeah, but we didn't lose.
We didn't lose, but we could have walked away with more. Anyway, not this past weekend, but the weekend before that, I got to play roulette without you interfering in my play style.
I had the first bet that we walked up and I had the first predetermined bet all ready to go, and we hit on it.
We hit on it, but then you poorly managed it afterwards.
All right, I'll give you that, but you got to give me credit for the initial hit.
But you got to understand what I did without you, buddy, is I went up. This was after the club. This was at Ocean Casino after I left HQ2.
So you're posted up in the actual trenches of AC. Like, you're actually at the casino, like, really up in there. Like, Philly, the Philly 15-minute off 295 is nice and everything, but, like, if you're in AC, you're really in the trenches.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, Ocean is in the crappy part of AC at that.
So you're really in the trenches, figuratively and literally.
Yeah, it's like a Mexican beach resort. You take one step out of the casino, you're done. But, yeah, no, so we left the club. Actually, before the club, I won $35 on blackjack. And then after the club, I went to play some roulette. First spin, put $25 minimum. First spin, I put it on red, right? That hit, boom, right? So then what I did was then I just bet 25 again on the next spin, and I pocketed the 25 I had just won. So I made sure I still had a decent profit margin. Or wait, no, I would have, whatever.
You would have broke even if you lost that, right?
I can't do the quick math right here. But the point is, I won the next spin. I bet on red again, and I won. Right. So now I had won $50. Right. So then I bet another 25. Right. And then I definitely had some profit money. I bet that 25 on black. That hit again. So now I had a lot more money. And then I think I even upped the ante for my fourth bet, which was on red again. And then that hit. So I had a lot of money at that point. And then I think I bet maybe $40 on the fifth spin, which I did lose. But I do remember I did walk away with $125 from that $100 profit. I don't really remember the exact specifics of it all. I was pretty inebriated, but I did win $100 on roulette without you, compared to a net loss of $20 with you. Because if you think about the $5 we won and the $25 I lost previously, that's a net $20 loss.
So you're trying to throw this on me?
Yeah, because I got to just go out there and play roulette how I want to play roulette, and I walked away with $100 profit. Walked away with $125, $100 profit. So I cleaned up without you out there.
Well, listen, pal. I ran a penny slot up to $200 this past weekend. So
that's all luck.
No, it's not.
Not if you're at the right,
not if you're at the right slot.
$100.
I get
profit.
wrecked on blackjack. I got the corner end of the table with all my boys this past weekend. I already knew I was going to lose my money, and it was funny. After I won the 200 on the penny slot, I came back to the blackjack table with some house money to come play, and it was $15 hands. Took out 30 to go put into there, and the first hand that I get is 11, so I double down. And I lose all my 30 in one bet right off there. And that was as much as I was willing to bust into my profit margin. So I still netted some money. But blackjack really ruined me the other night.
See, that's what you got to do in the casino is you got to, once you profit, then you got to keep at least some profit money while you continue
100%.
To bet. And that's the mistake a lot of people make is they don't do that. I think, so out of everybody I was with that Saturday night, I think me and only one other person ended up winning some money. I think my buddy George's girlfriend. I think she won 75. I think somebody told me that. But then my buddy DJ lost like $200 or $300. George lost money.
It gets nasty out there sometimes.
Yeah, so you gotta just, once you get ahead, man, then you just gotta play with house money.
You gotta know when to pull the plug. You gotta know when to pull the plug. And it's the positive way of pulling the plug and the negative. Like if you're going down by so much, and even if you brought a certain amount and you're willing to lose that certain amount that you brought, you have to know when to pull the plug, because sometimes even if you're willing to lose all that money, that's just not the table that you need to be at, and you're still going to continue to lose. You know what I mean? So you need to switch it up and go out and play another game or figure out a different strategy to go use, because you're not this. There's no value for you to be at this table at the moment. And I see a lot of people that just hang in there. They don't want to have the paper hands and leave, and they have too much pride, and then they just get ran for all their money because they won't get up from the table. Especially if all your friends are like influencing you, and you're all sitting down at a table together, and you know you don't want to get up just because everybody's doing one thing. Like, you need to be able to know when to pull the plug. Yeah, and you gotta know when to quit while you're ahead and just cut your losses. You know what I mean? Like, I look at it like this, right? I won a total of $135 in the casino that night, right? I went halves on a buddy of mine for a room. I paid $150 for my half, so I almost completely covered my share of the room. And plus, I didn't really spend money on drinks because we had a table with bottle service. So I basically almost got the trip for free. I did get robbed at Wahlburgers though, because those burgers are tiny. You know what I'm saying? You can get them in the freezer section at Acme too. Yeah, that's not an ad read. If Acme wants to hit me up about an ad read, we can get into that. But.
Well, I think me trashing Wahlburgers effectively. Yeah,
that's not the greatest PR look right there.
But no, I'll tell you this. One final thing was we ate Wahlburgers a little bit before we hit the club. We had Wahlburgers, then we went up, got changed, pregame.
You get the Wahlburger sauce on there too? Is that like their set thing?
I don't remember, but anyway, we had Wahlburgers, then we got changed, pregamed a bit more, then hit the club by like I want to say 12:30, 1 o'clock, maybe even 12. I was starving, bro. I was so hungry, I couldn't do it anymore. My stomach was like eating itself. So then I leave the club, go downstairs to the food court, right? I'm so drunk because I'm starving and I had a lot to drink. that all I see that I could eat down there, I completely missed a burger joint. I completely missed it. All I saw was a Chinese place, Kung Pao Chicken.
Yeah, but are you trying to compile burgers on burgers like that? Because you just had burgers.
Listen, all I was trying to do was get some food in my stomach so I can get back
fat slice of Lorenzo's, it sounds like, my guy.
So I could get back. They weren't open. I just needed to get some food in my stomach so I could go back up and start partying again because it was a fun night. All I saw was Kung Pao Chicken, so I'm like, whatever, right? Big mistake, bro. I'm just trying to shovel food in my stomach so I can get back up to the club, and I'm going through like a spice challenge, bro. Like my mouth was so on fire because I'm trying to shovel it all.
What did you
quickly,
get?
But it was Kung Pao, man.
No, like what? What did you get?
What do you mean? I got Kung Pao Chicken.
Is that the name of the place, or that's like you got Kung Pao Chicken?
I got Kung Pao Chicken. I don't know the name of the place.
All right. I thought you were saying that was the name of the place.
No. I got Kung Pao Chicken, which is very spicy. So, like, I'm trying to just power through because A, I'm starving. B, I'm trying to get back upstairs, but it's so spicy. I'm shoveling it all in quickly. So that just made it 10 times worse. It was brutal, but eventually I got back up to the club, had a good time, then won some money at the casino. So, overall, it was a good night.
Glad to hear. Glad to hear. But that about wraps it up today for the Paisan Sports Podcast. Make sure you guys go check us out on all social media platforms. We'll be busting out some content on there. We need to get back on the Paisan picks grind like me and Dante were talking about. Maybe we'll have some for Monday Night Football this week. But
yeah, and be sure to check our Twitter.
Yes, sir. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're usually live on Facebook as well, so we'll have some of that content coming out for you guys. But appreciate you guys listening and all the support.
Sayonara.